Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Not better than you, salam, mashallah. I was promised a better response. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it's good. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah, صاحب التاج والمعراج سيد الإنس والجنات محبوب رب الأرض والسماوات الذي اسمه مكتوب في الإنجيل والتوراة أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله صدق الله العظيم. Respected brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, it was a very incredibly beneficial lecture by Shaykh Yusuf al-Dhahabi. Alhamdulillah, whenever I've had an honor to share the stage with Shaykh Yusuf a number of times, it's always been very beneficial, and I'm sure it's been very beneficial for the community here as well today. And he spoke about morality, he also touched on Dawah, he spoke about the importance of morality, and I think what I'm trying to say is I'm buggered because he spoke about everything that I needed to. Alhamdulillah, I'm just messing. Alhamdulillah. But Shaykh did very eloquently explain the importance of morality. I was actually trying to do Abu Zayd Saruji here. If you guys know about, does anyone know about Abu Zayd Saruji? Has anyone heard of Abu Zayd Saruji? He's a famous comic character in Arabic. There are a lot of books written about Abu Zayd Saruji. Maqamat al-Hariri being the famous one. He's like a comic character. Those from the subcontinent probably know of Mullah Nasruddin. Anyone heard of Mullah Nasruddin? Similar to Abu Zayd Saruji. So Abu Zayd Saruji once asked people, he wanted to give a khutbah, but he wasn't prepared. So he said, do you have any idea today what I'm going to do? Obviously they knew he was going to give a khutbah. So they said yes. So he goes, there's no point speaking to you guys. If you guys already know, then I don't have to speak in front of you. Then next week he had to give a khutbah again, and people thought this time obviously we're going to say no if he asked the same question. He asked the same question and they said no. They go, if you have no idea about what I'm going to say, then there's no point speaking to you guys. So again he got away with it. The third week when he came to speak, they decided amongst themselves that some are going to say yes and some are going to say no. So he said, do you know what I'm going to speak about today? Do you have any idea? So some said yes, some said no. They said, those who know it, tell the people who don't know it. So he got away with it this way. So that's what I'm trying to do. But inshallah, on a serious note, we'll keep it very simplistic, we'll keep it short, and inshallah I'm aware of the time of Maghrib. The topic I have at hand is about Dawah, and I had to relate it to morality, but alhamdulillah, Shaykh has covered morality. Let's talk about Dawah in a very holistic, way or approach. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. Now there's a difference, according to some scholars, between Da'wah. Da'wah we normally understand is calling people towards Islam, صح? Right? But then if people are already Muslim, calling them towards Islam or calling them towards righteousness, is that still Da'wah? Some scholars have differed. They've said Da'wah is only calling non-Muslims to Islam, and when you call Muslim towards righteousness, it's just Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi anil Munkar. But sometimes we have to speak according to the situation. Rules with reality. Always rules should be accompanied by reality. And today, unfortunately, we are living in a time where Islam or Muslims, some of the Muslims, are at a stage where even they need to be called towards the fundamentals of Islam, like Shaykh Yusuf mentioned. So it will still be classified as Dawah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that you are the best amongst the Ummam. You are the best of the nations. Why? Because you will be enjoining right and forbidding evil. and you will be believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you will call people towards good and you will forbid them from committing evil. Once you have these traits, you are the best of the nations. So provided you do these things, you are the best of nations. So this is kind of a general rule for every Muslim. You know, da'wah can be of various types. There are some people, subhanAllah, the way they do da'wah is really amazing. I remember once a doctor, he spoke to me and we were just speaking generally, and he said, I do, you know, may Allah accept it, but there's something I do with my patients. When I prescribe them medicine, if they are Muslim, I tell them, you know, take your medicine after Fajr, then after Dhuhr, then after Asr, if he has to take so many medicines, or any salah. He would just, rather than giving them the time, he would mention the salah of the time. So he say after Fajr and after Isha. And this way, he said, so many patients have come back to me and said, just by you saying that, we never used to pray salah, but now we've started praying salah. Subhanallah. So some people, you know, da'wah can be in different ways. So this is a general rule. People can give da'wah or call people towards righteousness in different forms and different ways. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in another place, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Then there are people who are active da'is, people who are going through a process, and they need to go through a process. You know, if you want to be an active da'i, if you want to become someone who gives da'wah, you know, actively, you know, has a da'wah stand, goes out and reaches out to people, you know, rather than just, you know, depending upon your character, which is a brilliant form of giving da'wah, or just giving da'wah, you know, here and there, which is also good. You know, it's according to a lot of ulama, it's fard al-kifaya. If some of the community does it, then, you know, not every individual has to actively give da'wah. But there are people, the scholars, or active da'is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them in this verse as well. Then there are وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. So mu'minun, the believers, and mu'minat, the female believers. So there's no gender sensitivity here. So it's not, da'wah is not only for men, it's for sisters as well. And they help each other. They help each other. Al-Ihsan Projects. You know, the volunteers, subhanAllah, I was speaking to Muhsin, and the work they're doing, subhanAllah, and there are a lot of organizations like these up and down the country. You know, they help each other, mu'mineen wal mu'minat, mu'minun wal mu'minat. They help each other in calling people towards righteousness, in calling people towards Islam, in helping people preserve their deen. So you should do your best. I'm sure, alhamdulillah, you know, I'm already seeing that you reciprocate to their call. But there are, you know, you should really value this organization and organizations such as these, because they are helping preserve our deen, our legacy. And it's a big, you know, al-ihsan could also mean a favor. It really is a favor. Now for all this, I warrant a blazer, yeah? For everything I've said about Al-Ihsan Projects. SubhanAllah, Muhsin did promise me a blazer. But in reality, it is a big favor of organizations such as these. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now this one is kind of where we should pay a lot of heed to. Al-munafiqun wal-munafiqat. So if you don't do da'wah, and you do the opposite, you enjoin people, you call people towards evil, and forbid them from doing right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for such people, may Allah save us, calls them munafiqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran calls them munafiqeen. And then we have the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when you look at something wrong, man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, you know, change it with your hands. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. And if you can't do that, if you haven't got the power, the capability, the status to do so, then you change it with your tongue. You speak about it, you speak against it. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. And if you can't do that, if you haven't got the capacity to speak about it, if you speak about it, you know, for example, it can cause consequences which will not be favorable, then at least in your heart you think it's wrong, and that is the least form of iman. You have to at least consider, if you see something wrong, consider it wrong. It's very important. Now, other hadith we have, this hadith about capability or istita'a, your power. It's again, it goes back to rules and reality. You look at your circumstances, you look at where you are, you look at the mahol, you look at the environment, and then if you have the capability, according to your capability, you do da'wah, or you do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. And there's another hadith where we find that people, if a community doesn't do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, doesn't enjoin good and forbid evil, then their du'as will not be accepted. At the time, we are going through a very difficult situation. I'm talking about ummah in general. We look at the lion that was killed, Cecil, right? That's what his name is. And there was a big hue and cry, rightly so. Is that what it is? Cecil, right? Cecil. Wallahu alam. Rightly so. Islam, anyone killing any animal in a wrong manner or being brutal is not allowed. It was really wrong, and it was good to voice your opinion against it. But then when a baby in Palestine dies, we don't see the same hue and cry. We don't see that, that attention or the anger that was in people. And I'm talking about Muslims and non-Muslims. Why? Because there might be a reason, this is my personal opinion, that we have stopped doing amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, our du'as are not getting accepted, and we have resulted in a very, very weak nation. Not in number. Obviously in number we are a lot, and I'll come to a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually mentions this. So da'wah could be of different types. Different people can do it in different ways, and there are some people who are active da'is, male and female, brothers and sisters, and there are some, there's an individual responsibility upon each one of us as well. And if we don't do it, if none of us do it, we are sinful. If none of us do it in the community, we are sinful, and our du'as will not be accepted. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has compared those people to munafiqeen, which is a very, very strong word, and the people, we know munafiqeen will be in the lowest and the lowest of Jahannam, in hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Now, before I actually go into the actual approach or the prerequisites, and I go back to, and I'll keep on mentioning this till you get bored, about rules and reality. It's very important to understand this usul, this fundamental. Sharia prescribes rules, but in different eras rules were followed. Some are fundamental, absolute fundamentals, your 5 times salah, the fara'id, there's no ifs and buts about it. But there are other scenarios where your urf or your circumstances, your environment play a big role, and it's very important to understand that. Rasulullah, if I give you an example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look at the life, look at the seerah, and this is why it's very, very important to understand the messenger before the message. The seerah, I don't know whether you've had any seerah courses, but you should have these seerah courses. Very, very important, because it's very important to understand Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before his risala. It's important to understand the message, the messenger before the actual message. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's approach in Mecca, and if I, again my personal opinion, can compare the Muslims of today in a very different way, but we have again gone back to that Meccan period. How Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's approach was with people, how he gave da'wah to people, that is what we have to instill in our lives. So today we find ourselves in a very different environment, in a very different atmosphere. We We talked about social media, subhanallah. You know, something we couldn't even envisage 10, 15 years ago. Social media, subhanallah. You know, we used to make friends. Remember, we used to make friends by going to people, showing them how good we are and seeing how good they were, choosing our friends carefully. We were taught this, you know, from childhood. You know, make sure you choose the right friends. Company makes a person. All these things. But today, how do people make friends? They tell them when they're going to the bathroom. They tell them when they are going to sleep. They tell, and those of you who are involved in social media and do know what I'm saying, some of you are looking at me as if I'm speaking gibberish, but those who know about Facebook and Twitter, they know, you know, I'm feeling so and so, I'm feeling like this, I am, you know, relaxing on the pool, and then you become a bit more nosy and you look at their conversations and then you hit like, and that has, you know, you're a friend, you've made a friend. This is where we are today. You know, we are in this world. Today, Shaykh Yusuf was telling me about Snapchat. I've never heard of it. You know, I'm not from a village in Manchester. Manchester is pretty advanced. Thank you very much. But there are new things coming and new environment. The reality around us, the surroundings have changed. Everything has changed, and our approach in preserving Islam, in preserving our ethics, in preserving our morality has to also change. And there are different ways. The mannerism, the approach has to be very different. Now, before we actually look at the prerequisites, you know, which are, you know, things like sincerity, knowledge, compassion, credibility, these are traits which a da'i should have. But let me go, and before I say this, I don't want to sound controversial at all, and it's not pointing fingers at any group. Wallahi, Allah is my witness, I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. Alhamdulillah, you know, we are in dire need of unity at the moment, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that unity back. So this is not to point fingers at anyone. I'm just kind of my observations. I'm talking about my observations. Reality check. This is what we need. Because at this moment what I find is, firstly, we've forgotten the purpose of our life. We've forgotten purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says, لِيَعْبُدُونَ means لِيَعْرِفُونَ. That we have not, you know, created the jinn and ins, humans, but to worship us. And worship, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says, لِيَعْرِفُونَ أي, you know, to know Allah. And arafa, you know, ma'rifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it comes from mahabba, love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to know Allah, this is one of our objectives. The other, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He was conversing with the angels said, are you creating these? These will create fasad on earth. These will, وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء, they will, you know, commit bloodshed. The angels knew us, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I know something that you don't. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. You know, that's another of our responsibility, that we are deputizing. We are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's caliph, i.e. we are going to carry out the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are going to bring people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our purpose. And we have forgotten this. And then let's constrict this. Let's bring a reality check here. We are living in England, right? At the moment, we are in England. We are in Slough. We are in England. We're in UK. And I find, this is my observation, I find people have got this. Our youth, I talk a lot to our youth. And, you know, there seems to be this identity crisis that we suffer from. There's this identity crisis, you know, are we from here? Are we from there? Do we live here? Do we live abroad? Do we go away? There's a lot of fitna here, there's a lot of fasad here. Shall we go to a place where there's less fitna, there's less fasad? There seems to be this confusion. And we are looking for some kind of vacuum, you know, some kind of place, some kind of, you know, paradise on earth, that where we will be so, you know, relaxed, and we will be following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments in the best and the easiest of ways. And when I see this, I feel this is why, because of this confusion, because of this identity crisis, we have forgotten our purpose. And it's very, you have to understand this. You can sleep the rest of my lecture. It happens. I know in lectures, people do tend to sleep. So try to be awake for this. Because this is something I really want to convey. And I hope I convey it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fadl. So there seems to be an identity crisis. The truth of the matter is, we are where we are. We live in this country. We live in England. We live in UK. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us here. People can argue all they want. People can bring evidence. As I said, rules with reality. Sometimes in Islam, there's a fundamental that necessity obligates facilitation. So sometimes we have to be pragmatic, practical. And I said reality changes. In each era, reality is different. Our reality was different from those people before us, the Ottomans, or the Umayyads, or any Islamic era that you mentioned, or the Spanish, or the Muslims living in Spain, in Andalus. Our reality is very, very different. Our reality, our environment is very different. And this is what's happening. And because of this confusion, we have got two extremes. One extreme is who have got this mentality of us against them. They, the non-Muslims, and us. Let's there be a big gap between us. We're going to live in our communities. We're going to talk to each other. That's it. They are very different. Let them be where they are. This is one extreme. The other extreme is idgham. Those of you who have done tajweed, if two words meet and they go into each other, it's called idgham. And this is mixing into a level where you become them. This is another extreme, where you give up your ethics, you give up your morality, you give up everything Islam has taught you, rather than bringing the beautiful Deen and showing it to people, you give up this Deen. This is another, and this is purely my observation. So there are these two extremes. What do we need? What am I calling the reality check? We need a balance. We need a balance of both. We need a balance, we need to develop credibility. For our da'wah, we're talking about da'wah today, we need to develop credibility. We need to talk to people. We need to meet people. We need to initiate societal changes. Very, very important. Talk about, try to eradicate the issue of drug abuse. Try to eradicate the issue of grooming. Islam is part of the solution. Islam is not the problem. Islam is part of the solution. And this is how we have to present Islam. Islam is the solution. This is how we have to present it to Muslims, to non-Muslims. It's not us against them. Let us clean this slate. Let's get rid of this mentality. This is a very, very dangerous, and it's not productive. We are here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us here. And those who claim that we have to, it's fard to do hijrah. Let me bring a hadith of Fudayk radiallahu anhu. Fudayk radiallahu anhu was from a tribe. He had become a Muslim, and he was from a tribe who were mushrikeen. They were idol worshippers. And someone told him, how can you live in the mushrikeen? Again, like some people say today, how can you live amongst the kuffar? And Fudayk radiallahu anhu, he was a bit worried. He went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that, Ya Rasulullah, I have, this is what I've heard, that I won't be amongst Muslims if I'm living in my tribe who are kuffar, who are mushrikeen. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, do you establish prayers? Establish prayers, do your good deeds. If you have these two, you can do it, then you can live wherever you want. As a minority, you can live wherever you want. So the crux of the matter is that if you are allowed to practice your deen, if you're allowed to practice your fundamentals, and this is from Sharia, this is not something coming from a pocket. You know, if you're allowed to practice your deen, you can live as a minority anywhere. This is the truth. This is the honest truth. And where are we going to go? You have to accept this is your country. You have to accept this. There is no other choice. How many, okay, if you, let's talk from a pragmatic solution, you know, pragmatic perspective or a practical perspective. Muslims in minority living across the world are about 300 million, roughly. If you count the minorities of India and minorities of other nations, China, more than 300 million. Which country in the world, which land in the world is going to accept 300 million people coming back? Or coming there, sorry. Is that even practical? If somehow, I can't see it. I've studied Islam, I've tried to study Islam for a few years. I can't see Sharia telling me that I can't live here. But if, for example, let's see, for argument's sake, if you bring this perspective, if you bring this opinion, somehow you come to this conclusion, where's the practicality? And Islam, as I mentioned, the usul, necessity obligates facilitation. So you, because of necessity, you have to facilitate. So you have to, you know, okay. So where is the practical side of it? How are you going to do it? And so our objective in this Darul Kufr is not really to establish Khilafah. I'm talking about England. I'm talking about UK. And again, as I said, this is not to go against any of my brothers who have this opinion, but this is my understanding of Sharia, this is my understanding, and this is exactly what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be controversial here, but that is not our objective. Our objective, and this is again, let's go back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, let's go back to the seerah, when the Muslims went to Abyssinia. Ja'far radiallahu anhu and all those Muslims who went to Abyssinia, did they tell Najashi, it doesn't even make sense to me, did they tell Najashi that, oh, you allow us to worship, you allow us to pray salah, you allow us to act upon Islam, and what we want also is to overthrow you, bring Khilafah in, and us 70, 100 people that have come, we will rule the millions that you are. Does that even make sense? It doesn't make sense. This is not what the Muslims did. Even after the Islamic State, not of today, but Islamic state of that time, when it was established in Medina, even then the Muslims of Abyssinia did not leave. Until few years later, until a few good years later. So you are allowed, let's get rid of this confusion because this is counterproductive. Counterproductive. It's not helping us. This mentality is not helping us. It's not taking us anywhere. We are, you know, it's coming as a hurdle for your da'wah. Can you imagine people who are in millions, who have lived here, who have got their own set of ethics and culture? You are trying to come in, you know, compare in percentage, 2-3%, you are trying to change all of that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So let's get rid of that. And we need to understand, again, it's not us against them. We have a responsibility to bring this deen, to bring the beauty of this deen towards these people. You know, and these people can be of benefit in propagating Islam. Muslims, you know, seeked help or were helped by non-Muslims in Mecca. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle, who was not a Muslim, Abi Talib, did he not help the Muslims? When the big boycott took place against Muslims, Abi Talib helped him. Al-Mut'im helped. Ibn Hisham, these people helped Muslims. And this is why at the time of Badr, when there was a big battle the first battle between Muslims and non-Muslims, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Mut'im, I think had already passed away, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no one should lift their sword against Ibn Hisham. Although if he comes even though he will come as an enemy to fight you, don't lift your sword against Ibn Hisham. Why? Because he had helped us at the time of boycott. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he got the prisoners of war, also said that, if Al-Mut'im was here, we have prisoners of war now, about 60, 70. If Mut'im was here and he had asked me to release them, I would have released all of them. This is the gratitude Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed these people, non-Muslims. So we need to get rid of this mentality because it's not productive, it's counterproductive. And the other way we're going to wipe this slate clean is by concentrating on unity. Something very, very important. This is why I mentioned I'm not trying to speak against any particular group, because at this moment in time we have got no choice. Arguments, whether you are a keyboard warrior, whether you are, fighting against, subhanallah, arguing, baseless arguments are really breaking this ummah. Wallahi. Some people are, and everyone's claiming to be on haqq. Everyone's claiming to be, they've got their own highway code, our way, my way or the highway. Everyone has got their own way. And that is, subhanallah, there's a famous scholar, I'm forgetting the name, he said, one of the signs of religious or spiritual immaturity is by calling out everyone and by saying everyone else is wrong. This is a sign. When you see someone, if someone comes on the pulpit, if someone here speaks against this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, then you realize that this person is spiritually, whether it's a scholar or not, but this person's understanding, he might have a lot of information, but his understanding is not mature. He's spiritually immature. He's religiously immature. He's not got the understanding. Because if someone has, there are some people, as a part of consensus where they're on a religious level, they are wrong. They go against the very basics of Islam. But when people have minor differences, when everyone's calling themselves Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, whether you're a Salafi, you're a Deobandi, you're a Sufi, you're calling yourself Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, so why are we restricting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah? This is the group that will, achieve salvation. And I hope and I pray that all of us are in it. Whether you follow Imam in fiqh matters, even when I say this sounds so, feeble. This argument is so feeble or so pathetic that on fiqh matters, we have a difference. Whether you pray with, you keep your hands here, you keep your hands there. Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put me or the other person in hell because our hands are in different places? Do you really think that? SubhanAllah. It sounds so silly, doesn't it? But this is what people are. There are wars. Literally, people are killing each other for these petty issues. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in fact has said, "Yushikul umamu an tada'a alaykum kama tada'a al-akilatu ila qas'atiha." That there will come a time when people will call, others against you, like someone calls people for dinner. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they couldn't even envisage such a moment. They said, they're against us? Why, would we not say anything? And would we be less in number? That means we might be less in number. This is why this is going to happen. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, no, bal antum kathir, but you'll be a lot in number, 1.6 billion. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ غُثَاءٌ كَغُثَاءِ السَّيْلِ. But you'll be like froth, like nothing, dirt. This is what you'll be. You'll have no value. Your babies are being burnt, your people are being killed, but there's no value to Muslim life. And one of the causes of this is that our priorities are wrong. Allahu Akbar. Muslims at this moment are crying. The ummah, my brothers and sisters, is crying to have a Muslim, to have a mu'min, who has the same zeal of tawheed, which some groups claim. And they have the passion of love for Prophet ﷺ, which some other groups claim. And they have the zeal for knowledge, which some other group claims. But we have to have all these superlatives in us, and that is what will make a complete Muslim. So we need to wipe this slate clean, start afresh, wipe these barriers or these hurdles in giving da'wah. Unity. This is our priority. Get rid of our identity crisis and then concentrate on da'wah. I've just got 2 minutes, there's a lot to cover. But da'wah, essentially the traits we should have: knowledge. We should have humility with that knowledge, because sometimes knowledge can take you, you might have knowledge, as I said, but that's not real knowledge, that's just information. Knowledge is when it's backed with amal, like Shaykh Yusuf said. Al-ilmu bila amal kal-jasad bidun al-ruh, or kal-shajar bidun al-thamar. It's like a body without soul, like a tree without fruit. And then we need to have this, we need to gain knowledge. If you are there, not everyone's going to become a big da'i by just sitting on a chair and doing nothing. You have to seek knowledge, and seek it in the most righteous of ways. Seek it from the righteous scholars, and then you need to have humility with it. You don't have to be judgmental about people. You can gain knowledge, and then when you see someone without hijab, for example, you just crush that person. You crush her. You bring the haram police out, right? That's what we do. You're not wearing hijab, hawla wala quwwata illa billah. You're from ashab al-shimal. You're from the people of the left side. Ashab al-shimal ma ashab al-shimal. Fi samumi wa hamim. Do you know what's going to happen to you? Fi samumi wa hamim. You'll be in hot wind and boiling water. Fi samumi wa hamim. Wa dhilli mi yahmum. La baridin wa la kareem. This is what's going to happen to you. Straight away, admit that person into Jahannam. If a person hasn't got beard, if a person doesn't pray, this is not the way to give da'wah. You need to have the humility. The method has to be very, very prophetic. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's methodology, that's what we have to use. And we need to show compassion, rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are the servants of Rahman. Rahmah, mercy. Our Lord, subhanallah, He is the most merciful. And we are His servants. We are His Khalifa, as I mentioned. So why are we not showing compassion towards our fellow Muslims? So the method has to be prophetic, and you have to develop credibility by doing amal, by taking these initiatives, as I mentioned, by helping people. You have to develop credibility. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before the message, before Risala, before he was given prophethood, what did he establish himself as? What was his name? What was he called amongst the Makkans? Anyone? Al-Amin, Sadiq al-Amin. He was the truthful, he was the trustworthy. These are the traits that a Muslim da'i has to instill in himself. He has to develop that credibility. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's da'wah was so productive. Let's be practical. Why was his da'wah productive? Because he took these initiatives. Hilful Fudul, before Islam was, propagated, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took initiatives like the Hilful Fudul, that no injustice will be committed on people who are less fortunate. So this was before Islam. So you have to develop this credibility, the credibility in our society. We have to take initiatives to help the homeless. We have to take initiatives to get rid of, the drug problem, so to speak. We have to get rid of the grooming issues. As I said, Islam is part of the solution. So there's a lot to speak, and there's a lot to say, and there's a lot that I have to cover. But if there's something that we should take from here today, is that da'wah, although giving to calling people towards Islam is an obligation, and calling Muslims towards righteousness is an obligation, but there's a process. And the process starts with yourself. You have to instill the right traits. You have to get rid of the wrong thinking, the hurdles that you have in mind. You have to instill the right traits, and then that's how your da'wah will be productive. As I said, there's a lot to cover. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to act upon whatever has been said, and inshallah, some other time, inshallah, we'll cover in a bit more detail. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us, accept this from Al-Ihsan Projects, accept this from all of you here. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullahu khair.